There was a time where creature features not only ruled the horror movie landscape, but the world of cinema as a whole. This type of film, which is categorized broadly as any horror where a monster is the main antagonist and focus, was extremely popular in the early days of cinema. Now, all of the following movies were released in this decade and have done a great job keeping the flame alive. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture here with 10 recent creature feature horror movies you need to watch. Number 10. Slaughterhouse. Let's kick off with one of the most original and bonkers premises for a horror movie of all time. College girl Emily is running to become head of her sorority. To set herself out from the other candidates, she adopts a pet three-toed sloth named Alpha in the hope that his cuteness will win her votes. Emily's plan works for a while until it becomes apparent that Alpha is not the dozy tree dweller he appears. In 2023's Slaughterhouse, an absolutely brilliant name for a film, I might add, Alpha is the main villain as he picks off the girls one by one as they struggle to deal with this unexpected threat. The concept came about when co-writer Bradley Fowler set himself the challenge of coming up with a really stupid idea for a horror, but the final product leans so heavily into its own absurdity that the end result is a genuinely funny film with plenty of bloody moments too. Number 9. When Evil Lurks. When Evil Lurks premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2023 before getting picked up for distribution by Shudder. The story begins when two brothers find the bisected body of a man in the woods, which they investigate. They discover an old woman and her two sons, one of whom has been possessed by an unborn demon to become what is known as a rotten. As if that wasn't bad enough, the rotten can infect others by covering them in its blood, which, as you can imagine, causes things to escalate. With plenty of strong characters to get invested in and then cry over when they die, a frightening monster to drive the scares, and some fabulous cinematography, When Evil Lurks is a possession movie befitting of the modern age and a stellar example of the thriving non-English language horror movie scene. Number 8. Black as Night. Welcome to the Blumhouse is a series of anthology movies connected to each other by a thematic thread, produced by Amazon Studios by, you guessed it, Blumhouse. The first 4 films, which include Evil Eye and Nocturne, were conjoined by themes of family and love, whilst the second batch centred around, quote, institutional horrors and personal phobias. This is where you shall find the 2021 release Black as Night. Shauna is a high school kid with deep insecurities about herself. One summer, she discovers a horrible secret. Her neighbourhood in New Orleans is full of vampires. Also, the parking is an absolute nightmare. With a group of new buddies by her side, Shauna fends off the bloodsuckers, who are led by none other than the great Keith David. Getting to watch the master thespian flex his evil muscles should be reason enough to seek this out, but there's enough elsewhere in the movie to keep your attention. The whole film is a metaphor for overcoming teenage struggles, which everyone can relate to. Shauna isn't just slaying vampires in Black as Night, she's slaying her own inner demons too. Number 7. Blood Red Sky. What do you get if you mix Con Air with Snakes on a Plane with Blade? Not only do you get the best damn triple feature of all time, but you also get something that would look very similar to Blood Red Sky. This 2021 movie is all about a German woman who boards a flight to New York with her 6th son. Unfortunately for her, said plane ends up hijacked by a group of terrorists. Actually, it turns out the terrorists are the unfortunate ones, as our protagonist has brought more than just hand luggage onto this flight. After the baddies shoot her dead, it's revealed that she's actually a vampire, and now she's cheesed off. Taking over that plane doesn't seem like a good idea now, does it? Though the creature in this feature is ostensibly the goodie, she still has to wrestle with her awakened bloodlust for the sake of her son. Blood Red Sky is a smart little horror, as well as being a really fun watch. Number 6. Gaia. Here's an idea. If your drone crashes in the middle of a spooky forest, just leave it. Yes, they're expensive, but there's no way that you going to look for it is going to end well. Just ask Gabby from the movie Gaia. A South African joint from 2021, Gaia follows Gabby as she goes looking for her lost bit of kit, only to find way more than she bargained for. She encounters strange creatures that force her into hiding, only to discover that they're not strange at all. They're actually fellow humans that have been infected by a parasitic fungus. The same fungus that is rapidly taking control of her own body. Uh-oh. On the surface, the fungus creatures are the main villains of Gaia, but there's actually a deeper message about how humanity's actions have forced the Earth to turn against them. Even so, they're still utterly horrifying and will make you think twice before ever going near a mushroom ever again. If you're a fan of plant-based monsters and are still waiting patiently for The Last of Us to come back, then Gaia should tide you over. Number 5. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. This 2023 sci-fi horror follows a talented young scientist held back by a troubled family life and difficult social circumstances. At just 17, she's already witnessed the death of her mother and Chris, her brother, who was brutally slain as part of a gang war. In an attempt to use her intellect for good, she raises Chris from the dead, Frankenstein style, so that they can be together again as one big happy family. Unfortunately, she accidentally revives her bro as a monstrous creature with a thirst for blood and vengeance. Whoopsie. Chris is a fantastic villain in this story, as he is both sympathetic and unbelievably brutal all at once. As for our protagonist, you can't help but feel for her, as her struggle to live a normal life mirrors so many young minority kids in her position. As socially frightening as it is bloody and violent, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is one of those smart horror movies that is just as clever as it claims to be. Number 4. The Boogeyman. From the director of the game-changing Host and Dashcam, Rob Savage, and based on a short story by Weirdo-in-Chief Stephen King, 2023's The Boogeyman has some hefty heritage. The story is incredibly simple. A family dealing with grief find themselves in the crosshairs of a mysterious monster and must destroy it to return to their lives. In terms of horror plotlines, there's nothing new here, but Savage does a great job of getting the most out of a basic premise. If you're after a studio horror movie with a modest budget, then you could do far worse than The Boogeyman. The central cast are strong, headed up by Yellow Jacket's Sophie Thatcher. The scares are good, if a little manufactured, and the creature itself is very well designed. Is it any different to anything you have seen before? Well, no, but it's still effective nonetheless. Considering how god-awful some recent tentpole horror releases have been, The Nun 2, it's refreshing to see one actually done well, in the hands of a director who clearly cares about the genre. Also, at just 99 minutes long, it breezes by. Number 3. No One Will Save You. Neighbours might be a pain in the backside sometimes, but you know when they come in real handy? Fighting off an alien invasion. Sadly, for Bryn, the protagonist of 2023's No One Will Save You, her neighbours all hate her, so she must face the outer space nasties completely alone. Starring Caitlin Dever in the lead role, this film is not one for fans of dialogue, as it has just 5 spoken words in the entire runtime. The rest of it is devoted to some of the most tense action you will see in a horror, as Bryn must not only evade the aliens, but also the townsfolk who have fallen under their control. Relying solely on lighting, sound effects and music to tell its story, No One Will Save You is an achingly desperate film about one woman's struggle with solitude enhanced by some truly terrifying monsters as the villains. Dever plays this challenging role fantastically, a real star-making turn, and the rest of the movie will convince you to never be rude to your neighbours again, no matter how many times their cat pees in your garden. Number 2. Troll. If these movies were being ranked based on the size of the monster, then 2022's Troll would be number 1 hands down. Troll is set in Norway, where a woman named Nora is privy to information about the existence of the mythical creatures. Her knowledge comes in handy when a mining operation goes wrong, leading Nora to investigate further. What she discovers is truly something, a 148-foot troll hiding out in the wilderness. Just how something that large stayed hidden for so long is questionable, but let's put that to one side for now. Troll is a monster movie straight out of the classic days of Godzilla or King Kong. A big, rampaging beast heads towards a major city with seemingly no way of stopping it, only for a group of plucky humans to use their smarts to take it on. There's also plenty of environmental messages too, as is often the case with these movies, but let's be honest, you're only really interested in seeing the giant moving mountain smash stuff up. Number 1. Lamb. From Norway to Iceland, and from something large and menacing to something cute and fluffy. To begin with, at least. 2021's Lamb tests how far maternal love can go when 2 Icelandic farmers take in a half-human, half-sheep hybrid birthed by one of their ewes. Maria recently lost her own child, so grows to love the hybrid as her own. But things get complicated when the true nature of her surrogate offspring reveals itself. As with Lee Whannell's The Invisible Man, there are spoilers about Lamb that reveal just how creaturey it gets later on, but even without those, it's still an interesting take on the traditional monster flick. The hybrid hybrid, which is named Ada, is seen by some as a monster, but Maria loves her unconditionally. Lamb uses the language of a monster movie to challenge its audience's preconditioned thinking about human relationships and how we are unconsciously conditioned to think about those different from ourselves. More psychologically chilling than viscerally frightening, this film will definitely get your mind working and will definitely put you off mutton for the rest of your life.